Good afternoon. Greetings wherever you are. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got an incredible panel today, and we've got some great research and case studies having a close look at road trips. We've been actually doing this now for the last 5 years in conjunction with Longwoods, having one of the most comprehensive examinations of road trip behavior. And this year, we're looking at electric vehicles, or EVs, in some detail. So I'm delighted to be joined by this wonderful panel. Let me give a shout out to a good friend and colleague, Anna Laut. And I think many of you will know Anna. Where are you joining us from today, Anna?
I am joining you from the very hot Orlando, Florida.
Very good. So, of course, Anna speaks at so many conferences and events. I seem to see her every second week. So she's with our very good friends at Longwoods, who lead the research on road trips and our custom research on electric vehicles that we'll be sharing today. And she'll be diving into that research presentation shortly. We've got two wonderful destination stewardship experts and leaders joining us today. Andrew Grossman, who's Director of Destination Development at the Colorado Tourism Office, who are doing some of the most progressive work across the nation. Andrew, you're joining us from Denver, Colorado, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. Really excited to share the next hour with you.
And Andrew's going to be sharing the work that Colorado is doing across the state in electric vehicles and the lessons and takeaways for destination organizations. And Lena Allen is Director of Outdoor Recreation and Sustainability at the Arizona Tourism Office. And Lena, hopefully you're joining us from a not quite as hot Arizona as it has been in recent weeks.
Very much so, from Phoenix, Arizona. And you know that you're from Phoenix when you're like, it's under 110. We are loving our weather right now.
Very good. So I'll be inviting Andrew and Lena back. We'll just pass to Anna very shortly. Before we do, a reminder that we've got a huge amount of resources, both on road trips overall and on electric vehicles. We're going to be going through, you can see the agenda here. We'll have a look at the research first. Now, this is just going to be a snapshot presentation. The actual full research deck is, I think it's around 100 slides, which we didn't have time to get into today, all of the detail, but Anna's going to be providing a snapshot of that, and then the custom electric vehicle research that we undertook with Longwoods. We're going to be hearing from Colorado and Arizona as to what they're doing in the EV space and how tourism offices, destination organizations can be critical partners in accelerating the rollout and adoption of EVs, and of course, highlighting electric vehicle touring and travel opportunities in your destination. We'll come back and share some additional resources around EVs and stewardship at the end. But specifically on the research, we have got a landing page site, which you can see there, that will have past editions. It will have, before we share out the email via email tomorrow, an updated version of the research and presentation slides, the webinar recording from today, and a list of links and additional resources. We've also done a 4-page infographic, a very short visual summary in the sort of style you can see right here, to try and distill the most critical insights on both road trip behaviors, travel patterns, and electric vehicle usage into a easy to digest 4-page summary. So without further ado, Anna, I'm going to pass over to you. And Anna's going to present the road trips research and the electric vehicle research. Please make sure to ask any questions in the Q&A and to share your own experiences through chat, additional resources or comments you may want to share. So Anna, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris. We're so grateful for our partnership with Miles and for the fact that we have been working on the first study that I'm going to be discussing with you today, the road trip study. But first, for those of you who are not familiar with Longwoods International, we are a market research consultancy that was founded in 1978. We have been doing mostly and primarily 99% tourism since 1985. And Travel USA, which I'm going to get into the methodology of shortly, has started in 1990. We work with clients around the United States and Canada Canada, and we're based in Columbus, Ohio. And I do have to say that all the work here that's done, it's definitely not done by me. I'm in client services. I just want to give my great gratitude and thanks to our wonderful production team led by Cassie Ball, our Vice President of Research Services. We have Tammy Curdy. We have so many people who are working for us and doing this amazing work. And again, we're so grateful that we get to partner with this on Miles and that we get to spend some time in sharing this information with you today. Travel USA is going to be the longest running American trip tracking study in the United States. We look at people who are from in the United States and where do they go within the United States, right? That's what the Travel USA is. It's both traveling in the USA and people who live in the United States. When we're looking at it, we match to travelers throughout the United States demographically, as well as in what census region they live in. So the 250,000 or so trips we have in our database every single year is representative of all trips that Americans took, both for day and overnight, and for business and for pleasure. What we're doing here is we use an online panel and we talk to tens of thousands of travelers every quarter about the last 3 months of travel that they've done to make sure that it's fresh in their mind. When we're talking about this study here, we're talking about what it goes with Road Trip. So why do we actually focus on this with Road Trip, and why have we been partnering with Miles on this study for over 5 years? It's because it's a massive market, guys. It's every year over 125 million trips, and the direct spending that's associated with those trips is over $50 billion every single year. The Road Trip audience is large. It's there. They're looking for ideas. They're looking for places to go. And we're really excited to share with you some of that information before we get into electronic vehicles. The first one we're going to look at, again, remember that census region I mentioned that we match our population to when we're doing our study every wave. This is where the road trips are actually happening. We want to have something to compare this to for you. So in this slide, the yellow is going to be the percentage of people who are taking road trips who are from that specific census region. The orangey color is going to be the leisure norm. So that's all leisure trips in general, right? So we wanted to make sure you wanted to see how road trips are different or very similar, right, to regular leisure trips. And you are going to see here that the number one region is going to be the South Atlantic, but followed by this Pacific region. The Pacific region, it does stand out from leisure travel as well. So that means that road trips are stronger than just general leisure traffic in that region. The same goes for the East South Central region as well. We have more equaling here to the leisure norm when it comes to the East North Central, Middle Atlantic, and West South Central region, as well as the West North Central region and New England. So again, we just wanted to make sure you understood how these road trips are happening throughout the United States, so you can get a better idea of the impact on your region and where they're actually happening. Next, we're going to talk about my favorite variable for prediction, which is past visitation. I always say every year that I'm not a big fan as a market researcher of intention. I've been intending to go to Hawaii for 10 years. Have I gone to Hawaii? No, I have not gone to Hawaii. What's going on with that? Americans domestically, the majority of all American trips, be it business or leisure, are to repeat destinations. The way that the Americans work when they go international, especially to Europe or to Asia, you're going to have a higher share of new trips because of this time and the expense that's involved in that. When it comes to Americans traveling domestically, familiarity is a big pull. So when we're looking at that repeat visitation, and if you've been to those locations before, there's two things you want. So again, you want your destination to have at least half of your people have visited in the last 12 months, but you also want there to be enough space of new visitors so you can attract more people who can put your destination on the list and who can then become repeat visitors, right? So it needs to be a mix of repeat and old. So you will see here when we're looking at that road trip, those road trippers are adventurers compared to leisure travelers. 53% are going someplace they've been the last 12 months. That's 9 points less than the leisure norm. So it means that road trippers, they're actually kind of bucking that trend, right? They want to try to go to new places. They want an adventure. They're really willing to get out there and try to find new things, right? Compared to your normal leisure traveler. So I will say that it is important to get these people here, but because they're more open to new experiences, you can attract them to the first time to your destination. You can get on their list as long as you're collaborating with your partners, with states and with cities and counties near you to make sure that they have the full experience, that the road trip that they're really looking for. Okay. I just let's put this in here as a reminder. You don't have to drive your own car for a road trip. You'll see the vast majority, 82% of them are in fact driving their own car or truck. But I remember, and it's great that I'm on the call here with representatives for both Arizona and from Colorado, because I actually did a Southwest road trip about 7 years ago. And my Southwest road trip involved a lot of driving because I went to Mesa Verde and the Grand Canyon. So I drove a lot and I drove through a number of states, including Colorado and Arizona. But I flew out there from Orlando and I got a rental car, right? So keep in mind that, and again, the RVs here as well, you don't have to be driving your own car, and you don't need to be doing this in your own geographic region. You could be going to a region that you find really interesting, like I did, and explore it for the first time yourself. Okay. When we're talking about trip planning information sources, these are where people research, not when they went to book, because we capture that separately, but where did they go and research and be able to look at things. So what I want you to look at this before we look at individual parts of this, the yellow. Look how far over on, generally speaking, the yellow is compared to the orange bars, right? What is that saying? It's saying that more people overall, throughout the different available topics and sources that there are, more people who are going on road trips are researching than people who are not going on road trips, right? We're going to start this off as the researching a hotel or resort. 21% of road trippers are going to be researching through a hotel or resort. That's 3 points higher than the leisure norm. Also 3 points higher is people going to an OTA like Expedia. It's really staggering. It's almost twice as high for destination websites, which is good news for the destinations on board here. They are looking for those destination websites. It's tied for advice from friends and family at 14%, but at 13% social media, and that's 3 points above the US norm. So what I can say for you here is that people who are going on road trips, they are looking for information in a lot of different places. And that means they have more time to encounter your advertising and your messaging. Where are they actually doing those devices? What are kind of being used? Again, to no one's surprise, almost every single road trip involves some sort of electronic device planning. I know, shocking. That's the shocking part of the slide, right? Half of those trips involve planning on a smartphone, 43% on a laptop, and 38% on a desktop or home computer. If you add 49 plus 43 plus 38 plus that pesky 16% for tablets, it comes up to more than 100%. So what does that mean? Multiple device planning. Okay, they're not just planning at one moment or at one device. It's a planning, and they're creating an itinerary, and they're doing more than one planning session. So keep that in mind, that it's not just you're just not just going to be one and done with the road tripper when it comes to planning for a trip. They are going to be planning that on multiple occasions and in multiple electronic spaces. Okay. And when you're on the trip, almost everybody, again, 91% is using some sort of electronic device, leading by the smartphone. 7 in 10 of the travelers are on their smartphone. 26% do bring their laptop. I think some of them might be doing a little bit of business, kind of like I like to do on leisure trips, because I'm a market researcher and therefore weird. And 15% are using a tablet. Okay, and the accommodations. So I think that some people will be surprised at how strong here traditional accommodations of hotel is. Hotel, half of road trippers stayed in hotels. That is 11 points above the leisure norm. Again, these are people who are staying in traditional accommodations, and they're contributing towards your bed taxes. 18% stayed in a motel. Again, that's also higher than the US norm by 6 points. And a bed and breakfast is going to be 4 points higher than the leisure norm at 11% here, as is a resort hotel. Visiting homes and relatives, though, guys, look at the bottom, see how much further that orange bar is for leisure travel. 21% of the leisure norm in 2022, we're going to be staying with VFR, like the true VFRs, where you're staying in the actual house and not paying for accommodations traditionally. It's only 4% for road trippers. So I want to make sure you know that these road trippers aren't just camping. They're significantly a presence in your paid accommodations that are in your destinations. Okay. Activity groupings. Fun fact, Travel USA in 2022 has 84 activities for both overnight and day travel. And we group them into these, we call them groupings, but it's just a number of activities that come together and that create the grouping, right? So like for outdoor activities, it can include everything from like, adventure sports to hiking to horseback riding to hunting and fishing, right? There's a lot of different options. Snorkeling and scuba diving is our newest add to outdoor activities in 2022. So it's just a bunch of activities. And on the next slide, I'm going to show you the top 10 individual activities, but we wanted to just show you again the wide variety of different kinds of buckets of things these people are interested in that's going on with the road tripper. And again, for the top 3, they totally over-index the leisure norm, okay? Entertainment activities are going to be number 1 at 67% of road trippers involving at least one entertainment activity, you know, like going to a show, maybe seeing a sporting event, that kind of thing. Outdoor activities are going to be 63% for road trippers, and half are going to a cultural activity. A cultural activity can be seeing a landmark, going to a museum, et cetera, et cetera. So those are very different buckets, but these people are doing it. And again, 67 plus 63 plus 51 equals a lot more than 100%. So that means that these road trippers, they're not just one type of traveler. They're looking for multiple different types of activities that are on these activities that are available in your destinations. So making sure that you're attracting them to show them, you know, we have great restaurants, we have great cultural activities, we have great entertainment options, you know, we have outdoor spaces. Even if it's a city, we have great parks and playgrounds for your children in our cities. They're looking for multiple things to bring them to your destination. These are people who are traveling a lot. These are people who are adventurous. These are people who are going out there and they want to have like a really new and exciting time, right? And you do have those products. So make sure, don't just be outdoors, don't just be entertainment, don't just be cultural. Make sure that you're hitting on multiple points about your product services. I told you I was going to show you those individual activities, and here are your top 10 for the road trippers in 2022. A staggering 36% went sightseeing. Again, that's the whole point of road trip, is to go sightseeing. You are 15 points above the leisure norm on that. Shopping is number 2 at 31%, and that's still going to be 5 points above the leisure norm. Going to visit a landmark or historic site, that would be a cultural activity, and over double, that 28% is over double the leisure travel norm. So again, like I said, for what we're talking before, planning, look how far over the yellow bars are compared to the orange bars. What we're saying is that there's significantly more people on these road trips than just regular leisure trips that are participating in all these different activities in your destination. And again, it doesn't just stop at museums. We also have in the top 10 going to a national or state park, the beach or waterfront, everyone's favorite, a winery, brewery, distillery tour, going to a bar or nightclub, going hiking, right? These are a lot of different kinds of activities. And it goes to show you how many people are doing these different things. So again, it's just not a one type of visitor. They're looking to be able to truly experience your destination in ways that they're spending money in your destination. So it's even better. Okay. I told you about food. They're foodies, guys. Look at this. 55% are interested in the unique and local food of the destination they're visiting. That is going to be 7 points higher than the US norm. And about a quarter are trying a finer upscale dining spot or trying street food or food trucks. Okay. And again, we collect the demographics of the adult traveler here who's taking the survey, and you will see here that it's slightly more male than female. But again, remember, in the travel party, it might just be that more men than women this year took the survey. The average age is going to be 44.1, which is statistically the same as the average age for the leisure traveler in general. Household income, guys, why are they doing things and spending more money? Because they make more money. Only 33% of your road trippers have annual household incomes of less than 50,000. That is going to be 8 points below the US norm. So that 33%, they make less than 50,000. That means 67% make more than 50,000. So it is definitely, there are people who have the disposable income to be spending the money on these trips. And finally, again, we have about 15% of the people who went on road trips, they identify as having Hispanic background. 80% identify as being white, 12% as African-American, and 11% as a race other than white or African-American. Okay. And we do have a little bit one more here where we're talking about the importance of the long road trip. And Chris and I have been in touch about this webinar for a bit, and we actually talked about this. And it's like, these are the trips that you really want, right? These are the people who have the time off from work, they have the disposable income, and they really want to be able to go and see. And to really keep these people's attentions, sometimes you need to partner with fellow states. Sometimes you need to reach out. Sometimes you need to come up with like itineraries that are much broader than you normally would in order to be a stop overnight on these longer road trips. And it's worth it, right? Because look at this. And again, here we're going to see the regional breakdown of where the people who are going on these longer road trips, where their destination is. And again, the South Atlantic and Pacific are going to be the number 1 and 2 here, but you can see here how dominant those regions are. But again, for trip planning sources, we're looking at here, the online travel one, the online travel guide is going to be really strong here. 12% are looking at online travel guides, 11% are looking at airline or commercial carriers for some sort of planning, and AAA is going to be at 11%. So again, we have these people, they're planning clearly in a lot of different places. Okay, and the activities. So remember, we were only in the 30s for the very top activity for just people who are going on road trips. Look how much more involvement there is with people who are going on the 5-day plus road trips, right? They have more time to experience more different kinds of things, and they're definitely do it. Sightseeing for this group jumps to 44%, shopping jumps to 38%, as does visiting a landmark or historic site. And it's even more dominant than just the regular road trip here that's also going to be charted. There are just more people who are actually doing these things because they're there longer, they're more interested, and they're really into road trips, because you would really have to be into a road trip if you're going to go on it for more than 5 days. So to Chris's point, and by the way, it was Chris's point when we talked about it, and he totally sold me on it. These 5-day plus people are totally worth attracting, because they're the ones who are going to be spending a lot of money and being able to share the experience with their friends and relatives, and hopefully become your brand ambassador because they really liked your part of the trip. That is the end of the Travel USA section, I promise. And so this is the second study that we did. Thank you so much for Miles for partnering with us on this second custom study. We fielded this in early July of this year. Our sample was 1,000 adults in the United States, and we did the study online. The qualified travelers were that they took at least one trip, at least 50 miles away from their home, and spent 1 or more nights away from home in the past 12 months. And finally, right at the end, there is a bit of a data slice of a segment. So I wanted to make sure you knew what that data splice and segment was, so you weren't just like looking at me like, what is that? We have electric vehicle oriented travelers, and those are ones who have indicated that they have used or plan to use an electric vehicle on a trip, or that they own or rent currently an electric vehicle. Okay. So when we're looking at this, so again, the first question, of course, we're going to ask is, did you use an electric vehicle to travel on a trip? And you're going to see here that that we're going to see 62% no, 62% no, but that means 38% said yes. And how's that 38% split out? And again, the other options are multiple choice because they add up to more than 38%. Yes, 21% have taken an electric vehicle on an overnight trip, 18% on a day trip. We're looking at those are at least 50 miles from home. Looking at under 50 miles from home, 9% have taken one on a day trip, and 8% on an overnight trip that is closer to home. When we're likely to use an electric vehicle on the next trip, 39% say they are very or somewhat likely to use an electric vehicle, an EV, on an upcoming trip. We do have 30% who say it's very unlikely, and we have 7% who just they don't know or aren't sure, right? So we're still in the stage where we're actually being able to gather people who are into the EV. We're still on the cusp, right, before it becomes truly mainstream. But it's definitely something to look out for. And of course, we look forward to doing this study in the future to see how things have changed. Currently own or lease an EV, 64%, they never have, and 8% say they do not currently own or lease one, right? But among those who do, here we're looking at 11%. Tesla, to no one's surprise, is the most popular EV, followed by Ford at 8%. Kia and Hyundai are at 4% each. Okay. Likelihood that your next vehicle will be an EV, 52%, guys. 52% say very or somewhat likely. So remember that we're still trending up to a majority. You can see we're going back here. Sorry, a little bit lag. 39% that for their very next trip, they're going to be taking one. But when it comes to the next vehicle I'm going to buy, which can be 2 to 5 years out, like for some people, or like my sister, it'll be a year because she likes to change her vehicles out pretty regularly. It's already 52% that we're going to actually own or rent the vehicle, right? So, or lease, sorry, the vehicle. So we're seeing a lot more people, like not right at this moment, but in the foreseeable future, they're going to be driving EVs in their everyday life. And that means they're going to be driving them on road trips too. Okay. The primary benefit. So we did ask them, hey, what's the primary benefit do you think for everybody? Hey, if you have an EV or not? almost half said that it's better for the planet, environmentally friendly, right? So the environmental aspect is very strong among all travelers. Personal financial benefits is at 37%, and improved car services compared to gas vehicles is at 28%. That it's easy to charge is 24%, and it fulfills personal interests is at 22%. Only 11%, and again, remember, this is just all travelers, if you have EV or not, only 11% say there are no significant benefits. So that again means 89% say there are significant benefits. So we're definitely getting it here. Okay. There are always challenges, and you can tell there's a little bit of anxiety. And I know that Lena and Andrew are going to talk about how they are going to, they're working to alleviate some of those to make sure those stations are available and easy to use, right? So difficult finding the charging stations is going to be here at 51%, followed by 48%, the lengthening charging times to fully charge the electronic vehicle, and the limited driving range of the cars are all still concerns. Okay. How important is it that travel destinations have a wide variety of these charging stations that are easy that are easy to access and use? 79% say it's somewhat or extremely important. 79%. Okay. The amenities and services increase likelihood to visit a destination in an electronic vehicle. You better believe it. 40% say, yeah, that if they had free or inexpensive charging stations, they'd be more likely to visit that destination driving an EV. 38% that the charging stations are conveniently located for road trips, and that for 34%, the availability of rapid, fast charging stations. Because remember, one of the concerns we noted earlier was that it would take too long to charge the car, right? So those rapid chargers are very important. Okay. The support of government action. So I couldn't really make this question into there. So I kind of left the word as a subtitle, what we were actually asking here. And it's that the level of support for government efforts to phase out gas powered vehicles and make electronic vehicles the primary cars available on the market over the next 10 years or so, half. 51% somewhat or strongly support it. Only 19% strongly oppose it. Okay. And again, remember, I told you about that little subset of travelers that I mentioned. I already explained what those are to you. We asked the same questions. We just did a data splice. It rises to 88%. So 88% of the people who are electric vehicle oriented travelers, it's extremely to somewhat important that they have a wide range of charging stations that are easy to access or use. So it's even intensified among people who are actually actively in that EV space. And again, the amenities and services increase likelihood to visit a destination, also much higher than just the regular traveler. And you are going to see, again, a very similar top ones here, that the charging stations are conveniently located, that they're free, inexpensive or free, and that there's widespread ability of charging stations are going to be here. Following up by the availability of charging stations comparable with my electronic vehicle, and the availability of fast or rapid charging stations with a third each. Thank you so much for your partnership, Chris. We really enjoy doing both of these studies with you, and we're happy to answer any questions when the time arises. And thank you all for letting us share this research with you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Anna. Yeah, some powerful insights there. So obviously the road trips market is a very large and attractive market, and it is becoming electric by the day. And you can see that for tourism and your destination to fully take advantage, it's absolutely critical to make sure you've got the infrastructure in place. Just a reminder, there was a lot more research results, so we'll be sharing out in the follow-up email the full slide deck and a breakout of additional detailed information on longer road trips. We've also got a breakout of RV and motorhome road trip users, as well as some additional insights on electric vehicle users. So very good. We do have a quick question for you, Anna. Off the top of your head, do you know what the percentage of the US population, perhaps we want to look at percentage of US travelers take a road trip each year?
I will pull that while I'm letting Lena and Andrew do, because I want to give you the actual specific percentage.
Very good.
I'll be back with you shortly.
Yeah, so let's invite back Andrew and Lena to join us, please. Without further ado, let's jump into Andrew and then Lena. I've got a brief presentation on what's happening around EV rollout and support in their particular states. So over to you first, Andrew.
Thanks, Chris, and just so excited to be spending the time with everyone to talk about electric vehicles and tourism. It's been a passion of mine for quite a long time. I've always identified as a sustainable tourism professional, and have been working in the electric vehicle travel space since 2014, back when I used to work in Oregon, and we were setting up the West Coast Electric Highway. So any chance I can have to talk about EVs and tourism, I always really value. But a great place to begin with my presentation is, what is the Colorado Tourism Office? We are the destination marketing and management organization for the state of Colorado. We are also a division of the Colorado Office of Economic Development and International Trade, which is an office of the governor. And I think that's a really important thing that is going to be mentioned a few times in my presentation, is that what we're doing here in Colorado is really a multi-state agency partnership that's reaching towards and helping to advance goals that are coming down from the top. And I think that I saw the fact that Anna had about, government support for helping this transition. I think Colorado is doing a really great job of leading the way from at least a state agency standpoint. What you see here is our current strategic plan, the Colorado Tourism Roadmap 2.0. I'm just pausing here to call out that one of our 3 pillars is destination stewardship. So what we're doing here with our Colorado Electric Byways program is just one other example of how the state of Colorado is advancing destination stewardship by really striking a balance between driving economic vitality, preserving residential quality of life, but also protecting our natural assets. And really that balance is something that we can't define for every community, but our responsibility is to have different tools available to us that we can provide to our community partners so that they can choose their own adventure forward. And in this case, the adventure that we want them to at least always consider choosing is an electric one. So that brings me to just a quick description of our Colorado Electric Byways program. I mentioned there is broad statewide support for this concept, and that's because in 2021, Governor Polis laid out the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Reduction Roadmap, which has a series of greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. Familiar with the state of Colorado, we've been in the process of decommissioning a lot of our coal plants. That is not done with yet, but that's still a process that's underway. That really was the initial step forward in a greenhouse gas emission reduction plan. Now that kind of that first tier, if you will, is being addressed, transportation and mobility are clear priorities for the state of Colorado to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, and that's really called out well in this roadmap. And that call out of this transition of our transportation sector has really been the direction for this multi-state agency partnership between the Colorado Tourism Office, the Colorado Energy Office, and also the Colorado Department of Transportation. There's a 4th actor in this discussion. That's the Colorado Scenic and Historic Byways Commission. I'm also one of the Scenic and Historic Byways Commissioners. So it's really those 4 entities are the ones that are collaborating on the Colorado Electric Byways concept. And in addition to the byways concept, we also collaborate on really robust incentive programs that the state of Colorado has to offer. We have our EV fast charging corridor program, which really looks at state investments at 34 high-powered DC fast charging stations on key arteries of our transportation system. We also have an EV Plaza program, which really focuses on, high-density urban areas where you want to put a lot of stations in one single area. And then we also have our Charge Ahead Colorado program, which is the one that I'll spend the most time talking about today, which is an incentive program for rural parts of the state to get 80-20 split funding for charging stations. I think one thing Chris and I have talked about is that there's a lot of federal funding that's available as well. So I think if you're in the state of Colorado, there's a lot of different incentives for you to take advantage of to get charging stations installed. So what is the Electric Byways program? We have 26 scenic and historic byways located throughout the state. And one of our goals as it relates to reducing our transportation emissions is to electrify all 26 of our byways. This has now been called out in the 2023 Colorado EV plan, again, just to generate more broad support for this concept. And then as of May of 2023, we now have 14 of our 26, so about 54% of our byways are currently under designation as Colorado Electric Byways. How are we defining this? So the way that we've defined it here in the state of Colorado is that we have dual port, so dual standard DC fast charging stations located at least every 100 miles within the start and terminus of each byway. We also understand that not all of our byways are 100 miles. So we have a bit of a kind of sub clause, which is when byways are less than 70 miles, we've got charging stations located within 15 miles of the starter terminus. With the real spirit of our definition being that drivers never have to move more than 100 miles without getting access to a dual port DC fast charging station. Here is a map of our Colorado Scenic and Historic Byways. One of the links I know that Chris and the team will send out is related to our coloradobyways.com website. So this is actually a graphic from that. If there is a little lightning bolt on it, that means that it's one of the ones that we've electrified. So it's nice to see that it's not all in one pocket of the state. There's a good range of where we've been able to move forward with electrification. There's a little bit of a gap for us in the southwest corner, so bottom left, but that's an example where the state's actually looking to pursue some of the federal funding that's available, because the state incentives may not be quite enough to get what we need in those areas. I'm going to show this one overlaid with the other one because it's something that's really called out to us, is that if you look at the 3 incentive programs that we have between the EV fast charging corridors, the EV Plaza program, and then the Charger Hit Colorado, each one of those fills a different layer of basically like an ArcGIS that we have available. So this one is the DC fast charging corridor. And if you really look closely between these two, where the DC fast charging corridor is landing is actually kind of the yin yang of where the Colorado Scenic Historic Byways are. And then the EV Plaza program is really looking at the more urban areas. So we've actually designed our incentives really well that depending on where you are, you'll have access to some level of state incentive funding. So what have we been able to achieve? It's really the fact that we're focusing on the 26 byways first has really allowed us to narrow our focus and be strategic with our resources. If you're familiar with Scenic and Historic Byways programs, each of them have local management entities that we can coordinate directly with. So we already have a targeted list of individuals or organizations that we can contact to basically drive outreach and to help drive them towards applications. We've invested in images that build range confidence. That's the word that we like to use here, not range anxiety. A lot of the images that you see in my presentation are ones that the CTO has funded and then made available to the industry as well as the other state agencies. And then we've also been able to generate a lot of buzz as it relates to the concept. One that happened a couple of years ago was some work with the New York Times, but we just continue to see a lot of interest in EV travel from a press perspective, and knowing that and having the images to help showcase that, I think has really been a huge asset to the CTO as it relates to our role in this multi-state agency partnership, in which we're really driving promotion and awareness through things like PR, access to images, coloradobyways.com. And then you've got the Department of Transportation who understands the transportation infrastructure, how people are moving through the state, and then the Energy Office really is responsible for managing the incentives, but also the technical know-how as it relates to vehicles and stations. So quickly, because I want to make sure Lena's got time and for questions. So we're going to continue to target earned media with everything that we do to really build awareness of this initiative and give the folks on the ground a feeling like people are seeing their progress. Knowing that the New York Times came into a few of our communities with a journalist really validated the time that our local partners are spending on getting stations installed. The Energy Office is currently running a statewide EV adoption campaign using the images that we captured here at the CTO. And a major goal for us, as I'm sure for everybody, is to continue to enable visitors to get access to rental car vehicles. I know at least we were talking about as a group that Hertz is making great progress with this, but if we're going to look at a full transition of the visitor economy, we're going to need to see a lot more vehicles on the road that are able to be rented. So with that, I will hand things over to Lena.
Thank you, Andrew. Now, I will be honest, that's a tough one to follow because Colorado's knocking it out of the park. And Andrew, you were just doing such amazing stuff that I'm green with envy, but also extremely excited to listen to your report and come back to Arizona. I'm also one of those people who's a strong believer in really acknowledging and being transparent in a journey towards sustainability, because that's what it should be. It should be a journey, not the destination. And so as a state, we're kind of beginning a lot of our sustainability efforts. In fact, my position's only been around for about 6 months. And for those who aren't familiar with our state, there we go. This is our current mission, which in short, our job is to promote and protect the brand of Arizona, and we do that through collaboration, promotion, and development around the state. But like I said, we are just beginning. We're just at the foundation. And one of the things I love to do when you're looking at implementing a sustainability plan is look for those small wins. Look for those low-hanging fruit, things that you can implement. Look for your strengths. And one of the things we actually had, which is just shocking to me, is our infrastructure was so well developed back in 2014. Think about that. Almost a decade ago, our infrastructure for EV chargers was so robust that we actually went and created a guide that had multiple itineraries of trips people could take through the state. Of course, we still have a long way to go, but that one thing was just definitely something that we could take and utilize going forward. So that low fruit that we're really focusing on right now is providing and updating information. We have a landing page that will provide visitors that come to our state with the information they need to know on how to get through the state with their electric vehicle. I also like to bring out too that things are constantly changing, especially in this space. So we are always looking at keeping that updated. So yes, we've updated it, but we're going to continue updating it as we go forward. The other thing that's beautiful about our state and really anywhere is the variety of destinations and what really makes each community unique. So what we like to do is celebrate our partners. And one of our partners who's knocking it out of the park is Flagstaff, Arizona. And for those that aren't familiar with Flagstaff, it is a mountain town that's just south of the Grand Canyon. It's actually considered one of the gateway communities to the Grand Canyon. It also lies right on Route 66. So as you can imagine, they have a pretty high visitation to their state. And it's a very strong mountain community. They have a lot of pride in their destination and their product. So a lot of times they've been working hard to make sure that they're preserving that long term. And one of the things that the local destination management organization there did was they actually utilized one of our state fundings through the power company to put EV chargers at their visitor center, which is that gorgeous building here on the screen. It's actually a historical building. It's a train depot, and it is their visitor center that happens to be right in the heart of downtown. So the destination organization worked hand in hand with the city to not only make this a charging place where people can stop, get information, and then go and see what this community has to offer, but they're working on building out really a transportation hub so people can stop, they can get information, and they can travel all through Flagstaff through public transportation, bikes, even walking tours. So as people are stopping in, which the visitor center is seeing a good intake and increase in people that are charging their cars and coming in, hey, this is great. We love this building. It's beautiful. What information do you have for us? They're able to provide right then and there information on Flagstaff, where to go, even walking tours starting there. One of my favorites, as Anna said earlier, everybody loves the brewery tours, and there are some amazing breweries there. Of course, you got to be responsible, make sure you have your designated driver after your EV car has charged, but still, it's a brilliant way to harness part and make sure that that tourism product you're providing is a high quality product. The other thing that they've been doing too is as people are stopping by, they're implementing just responsible tourism messaging. So it's also kind of becoming a larger sustainable program in general, and really all centered around this EV charger and a sense of community. And one of the things that they utilize, and we actually utilize it too, is PlugShare. And this is one I just want to send out to anyone who's new in this space. It is a great organization. They do 100% focus on electric vehicles. I know Flagstaff, the map you have up here, this is actually an interactive map on their website where you can hover over every single one of those destinations and get information about that destination charger and where it's next to and all of that. And then it will even, as construction of new ones, they implement it and put that on the site. And then it's also user generated. So users will get on and be like, hey, this charging station costs this much. This one was right next to such and such. So it's a great way to kind of do your own research. And the beautiful thing too, is they have a desktop version and they also have an app. So that it will go for that cross device use that multiple people, as the data has shown, are utilizing. So yeah, we have a long way to go. We definitely, like I said, I'm green with envy. I'm bursting the seam with a bunch of ideas from Andrew's speech and his presentation. So what are our goals for us going forward? How are we making those small incremental changes to make our destination, our journey to a sustainable destination, more powerful? And one of the things we're really working on is expanding and strengthening our current partnerships and looking for partners that might not have had a seat at the table. I'm a strong believer in not reinventing the wheel and going with that same analogy. How can we strengthen that wheel? How can we really focus on the hub that's the support of the wheel so that all of the strengths coming off of it are nice and strong too, and the wheel actually works and functions like it should? And when we're working through a whole destination, that is kind of the goal when it comes to sustainable tourism. We're also looking at expanding and obtaining funding for our state. As it's been mentioned, there's tons of opportunities out there. So we really want to make sure we're on top of it, whether it's the government, federal, government, state funding, or even organizational funding. We want to make sure we're harnessing that and utilizing it to help with our tourism product through things like the Arizona Visitor Center, getting ready for the centennial of Route 66 in 2026, or just overall helping fill the gaps throughout the state and support our partners who have their own initiatives when it comes, like the Department of Transportation. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Chris.
Thank you so much. Why don't we chat briefly about where can a tourism office or a destination organization add the most value? So both of you shared examples of the work you're doing. There's quite a number of destination organizations joining us today. If you had to identify 1, 2, or 3 critical areas where you think a tourism organization can add the most value to the rollout and acceleration of EV adoption across the state, where would you highlight? So Andrew, do you want to jump in first?
Absolutely. I think it really comes into, I think we're all looking at the same direction right now as it relates to wanting to, reduce the impacts of travel, specifically greenhouse gas emissions. What's the agency though that a state tourism office has to really help advance that? Because as much as, we can talk, I can't change what a hotel's doing directly. The most that I can really assist with is really rethinking how people move through a destination. That's really where I feel like state tourism offices have the most agency. So looking at, how can we leverage our bully pulpit as destination marketers to really enable low emissions and emissions-free travel, whether that being propping up electric vehicle options, but even maybe going a little bit further and saying, could there be car-free transportation options? So really, when I've looked at, how can a state agency that focuses on tourism reduce emissions? Transportation is always the one that comes to the forefront. So building out a robust education and awareness program that's also designed to bring your destination along, because you don't want to be promoting something that's not accurate on the ground. It'd be great if I could say you could drive an EV throughout the entire state of Colorado, but you can't do that right now, but we're doing our best to get there.
Very good. And what would you add, Lena?
I think that's a great point, that it really is the ability to connect the journey of just looking at that holistic approach. Where do travelers start and where do they end? I think so often as destinations, we look at just the short time they're with us, but how can we harness that entire journey? How can we harness the short time they're with us? And I think sometimes it's really making sure that the places that they're going to be visiting, whether it's hotels, scenic byways, information centers, all of those can actually have benefit to them, and it can actually lead a community's economic development. So I think there's a balance there.
Very good. And I've just put in the chat, Slovenia is a country that's doing a lot of innovative things in sustainability. I've been lucky enough to go there and meet with their National Tourism Office. They've got a very forward-looking sustainability plan of action, and that includes what they call green mobility, and they do a superb job in integrating electric vehicles with all the other sort of zero or low emission modes of transport, everything from e-bikes through to public transport through to walking trails. And we've talked about funding, and I'll share some resources in a moment in the chat about some of the funding options, and that's certainly a critical area that a destination organization can be working with other agencies to make sure that the state, the city, the county is taking advantage of what is still a remarkable amount of money, and we're unlikely to perhaps see the same amount of federal money in the future. So we've really got a sort of window of opportunity for tourism to be at the table saying, are we thinking about our rural communities, our remote communities, the places that maybe aren't front of mind for other agencies or for politicians? Let's just talk about those rural and remote communities. So Andrew, first, what's Colorado doing specifically, and perhaps you could name a remote or rural community to get EV charging infrastructure in there, or what do you think is most important in terms of getting EV infrastructure into these types of communities?
Yeah, so I think our scenic and historic byway focus, I mean, a lot of our scenic and historic byways are in rural communities, so that narrow focus has allowed us to really target that audience. And then the Charge Ahead Colorado incentive program operated by the Energy Office is a direct funding source for them. But, you know, that's what we've been doing. What I really want to call out are the 3 communities that are along the Silver Thread Scenic and Historic Byway. You've got Creed, which I think has about 250 people in it. You've got Lake City, which has about 450 people, and South Fork is in a similar space. But Silver Thread was one of the first byways we were able to electrify. I believe Lake City might be the most remote incorporated community in the state. And what's nice about that, though, is that the Silver Thread Byway is plowed year round. So, you know, they're really saw themselves as an area that's desirable, focusing on looking at times to travel during off-peak seasons. And the community's made an investment in installing some of the first electric vehicle charging stations we saw in rural communities. And we're super excited to have those communities on as partners and to continue to see their journey. In fact, even Lake City is tied to the Alpine Loop, which is another one that's kind of a high altitude scenic byway. And that is really maybe the highest electric byway that we know about in Colorado. I can't say for a fact if that's entirely true, but it's over 10,000 feet. So if you want to drive a high clearance all-wheel drive vehicle, like maybe a Rivian, for example, and some off-roads, you can thank Lake City for installing one of the charging stations that makes that possible.
Very good. And I shared links, resources building on Andrew's presentation, including detail on the byways, and also their great electric byways toolkit. So Leah, what would you add about the whole opportunity around getting EV charging stations into rural and remote communities?
Yeah, of course. I think that's such a great question. And one of the things I think is so critical with any sustainable motive and goals is it all needs to be community led. So how can you meet the community at where they're at? And I think some of the barriers sometimes is power infrastructure, different priorities that community might have. And I think if we can approach it with that balanced sustainable tourism approach, where it's not just the economic benefit, which is a beautiful thing, it's the environmental benefit, but it's also that socio-economic and then the cultural. There's a lot of ways you can tie this all in and make it be that holistic approach. A couple of the ones that for us just make me so happy that they're doing such amazing things is actually also along Route 66, because of course that's just an iconic road trip way. And one of them is Seligman, Arizona, and they actually have a population of less than about 1,000. It's like around 1,000, which is a very, very, very small area. But they have a few charging stations. One of the ones that they put in was an RV park, which actually makes a lot of sense because there's already infrastructure for RVs for power usage there. Another one is Winslow, Arizona. And they also are another one that's somewhat small, not as small. We're looking at probably about a population of 9,000 along Route 66, but they also utilize their visitor center, which happens to be another historical building, and they have EV chargers right there. So they are able to have people come in, get some information about what to see in their community, besides going and getting their picture of standing on the corner at Winslow. But they're able to actually really expand them beyond that one destination point of the city. So I think there's some room there to really work with rural communities and see how it can be a win for them and to make sure that it's a very balanced win for them.
Very good. We've got couple of questions, and I do want to get back to Anna. I'll ask Anna to join us in the last few minutes here. Thank you, Anna. So perhaps before we go to these questions, Anna, do you have an answer for the question we had about the percentage of US travelers that go on a road trip?
Sure do. Each year, up to 15% of all trips are road trips, Chris. So it's a significant portion of the domestic overnight traffic.
Very good. And another insight we found in the research with Longwoods is it's more spontaneous and able to be influenced. So people have shorter planning times, and they're more likely to be somewhat spontaneous about going on a road trip. So thanks, Anna. Amy is asking about the work you've done with rental companies. So Hertz, and we're hoping to feature Hertz in a future webinar, perhaps the 2024 edition of this. They've done quite a lot of work around electric vehicles, but she's commented on the experience she actually had in Phoenix, Lena, where she picked up an electric vehicle. The rental company was out of the other vehicles. She was somewhat nervous about it. It turned out fine, but her experience was the actual staff at the rental vehicle agency didn't have a lot of training or knowledge about EVs. So what are either of you doing working with rental car companies? Lena first.
So I love knowing that the rental company is one of the ones that didn't have that information. Because even as we were preparing for this, I was like, oh, rental companies, that needs to be on the stakeholders that we have not connected with. So they are definitely on my list of ones that we need to work hand in hand with, especially because a lot of them are also probably having funding opportunities and things like that as more and more people look to rent cars. So very early for us.
Very good. And Andrew, what's your thoughts around rental agencies, partners? Have you engaged with them? Do you plan to engage with them?
I've engaged with the rental agencies on and off in both my time at Travel Oregon, but also now my time at Colorado Tourism Office. The first thing I thought of was a fantastic partnership that Travel Oregon had with Enterprise and Nissan back in, I think it was 2014, 2015, where we were able to get our Oregon electric byway brochures into the hands of the rental car agencies. So a great example of having printed information that a state tourism office invested in to kind of help achieve that. But I will just come back to, I think that it's more important to make sure that the rental car agencies know how to access PlugShare, because that really is the authority of charging stations. I mean, if you're in a Tesla, it basically drives you to charging stations, from what I can tell. So maybe that's not a great way to not have good range confidence. But for those other vehicles that I think are really the ones that we're seeing a lot of government leaning into, how can we really work with those rental car agencies to get the tools that they need to help their own transition? The thing that I have learned is that it's incredibly hard to transition a rental car fleet. A lot of the ones that I've seen success on are typically some of the smaller rental car locations, if you will, that don't have as much volume going through them. Those kind of high volume ones, potentially at airports, tend to be rather complicated. So there's a lot of great work being done by the rental car agencies. There's still a lot of work that we all need to continue to be doing here. But at the very least, if you are in an EV, you can get a quick tutorial about how to use a charger, and more importantly, how to access information about operational chargers that are the right standard for your vehicle.
Very good. We've just got a couple of minutes left. Rachel's got a question about any comments from anyone about how messaging around EV adoption needs to change between in-state versus out-of-state visitors. Andrew or Lena, do you have any quick comments?
Yeah, it kind of comes back to something I mentioned before, is really, and the concept of accuracy in marketing is really important. So, when you look at an in-state audience, those are folks that will more often than not be the folks that have the electric vehicles that we heard from Anna, that at least we can target folks that have access to engaging in an electric vehicle tourism experience. If you're out of state, as I continue to allude to, it's, you can find them, but it's not as available. So I think that from an in-state perspective, it definitely is, you can see your iconic Colorado locations without having to compromise it because you're behind the wheel of an EV. And that's what we're looking to promote through the Colorado Electric Byways. If you're an out-of-state individual, know that Colorado is hopefully leading the way, or at least, part of those that are leading the way, and that we are focused on protecting our environment. We are focused on transitioning our visitor economy. And if you can find your way to here to do it, that's great. Otherwise, it'll be here for you soon.
Very good. Well, we're at the top of the hour, so we'll wrap up, but let's just share 2 resources. So a reminder that we've got a landing page. We'll be sending out all the resources from today via an email tomorrow. And we've also got a whole resource set around climate change action, including the migration to electric vehicles and global examples in that and many other areas of climate change action. So please take advantage of those resources. And if you've got great examples you want to share, please reach out to you. We'd love to showcase them. So thanks again so much to Andrew, to Lena, to Anna for bringing your expertise, your resources today. Thanks to all of you for joining us, and we hope to see you out on the road in an electric vehicle somewhere. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.